All right, welcome back to the Death Lineup. It is not necessarily basketball season, but there are still tons of things to talk about the Warrior. Well, not tons. I wouldn't say tons. We're going to take a couple topics here. We'll stretch it out, and we'll also talk a little bit NBA stuff because I know Brian's heartbroken with one casualty of the NBA season already in Chet Holmgren, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. Okay, so first things first here. You and Ben sent a text with this information, and I had no idea what was going on until I did watch it, and I was thinking, why is Stephen A. Smith messing with our boy, 19-year-old Jonathan Kuminga, young enough to be Stephen A.'s son, and he's hearing some stuff about Kuminga. And we're going to play the clip in a second, but I want to get your thoughts on, is this just a creation of the offseason and we need stuff to talk about? Have you heard anything else? Has Warriors Twitter or Warriors Reddit done any investigation here and shown any proof of information about why this may be true?
I haven't heard anything. It kind of came out of the blue, so I do think it's like the lack of topics. It's the offseason. There's not much to talk about, especially this past week before the Chet stuff and before this Pat Beverley trade. There's been really nothing. So, except for the KD thing, but yeah, I just feel like there wasn't much to talk about. But at the same time, Draymond did do this press conference. I don't know what the importance of it was, but it was in like the middle of the season or maybe towards the end of the season, and he just started going in depth about everything. And I do recall that he had mentioned that Kuminga was like showing up to practice late or something like that.
There was that, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll play the clip first, but I do think that JK has had like, I don't know if he's like, because I don't want to dig too deep or speculate too much, but I do feel like he doesn't understand the hierarchy that much. And I think his rookie season he started to understand. But I remember when he first came in as a rookie. Again, this is speculation to another level, but I remember Klay Thompson posted a photo on Instagram of him in some car, some convertible, and Jonathan Kuminga was like, "Hey, you got to let me get in that thing," or like, "You got to let me jump in the car," and he was like, "Hell no, rookie! Like, no."
All right, we're going to play the clip here. I'm going to share the screen from Twitter, and it is the Twitter handle of talkin _NBA. They have the clip. I think the clip comes from one of ESPN's social channels. So let's play it here, and let's see what Stephen A. has to say.
To be significant, I'm worried about Kuminga. I'm hearing too many things about him off the court in terms of his head, the level of discipline that he lacks. You understand? Some of the foolishness. I'm not getting in this personal business. I'm not saying nothing like that. I'm talking attitude. I'm not talking actions. I'm saying that attitude, the level of focus, commitment, determination, just putting your head down, doing the work. I'm hearing that he's shortchanging the Warriors in that regard, and he got to get his act together because I'm a Jonathan Kuminga fan.
You didn't sound like a Jonathan Kuminga fan there, Stephen A. But okay, so watching it, I've watched it a couple times. The one thing that's pretty clear is that maybe it's not clear. Maybe I could be reading things into this, thinking that I know how players use the media. Let's say Andre Iguodala was a little unhappy with, I don't know, maybe Jonathan Kuminga's offseason regimen. Maybe he's taken a look. Maybe he believes that since he's a champion, that I'm going to celebrate a little bit more. I'm not going to, we'll be ready. I'll be ready by training camp. But we won the championship. It's time to celebrate. And again, I'm just using Andre as an example. Could be a coach, could be somebody close to him, and they're saying, I'm trying to get through to this guy. He needs to work harder. Blah 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 blah. Let me talk to somebody who may talk to somebody, and then that information strategically gets to Stephen A. I don't know if that is the case, but that is the first thing that popped into my mind, is that somebody who is close to Kuminga, who wants to maybe light a fire under his rear end because they know that he's got just such tremendous talent. They know that he's 19. He's probably on Twitter a lot. He's probably on TikTok a lot. He's probably seen the Facebook reel of this conversation more than a couple of different times. And so that was my immediate thought was somebody strategically placed this so that he knows that, you know, he kind of needs to maybe work a little harder during this offseason. What do you think about that?
That makes sense. Yeah, like I think that like the report came out of nowhere, right? But I don't think Stephen A just made this up.
Yeah.
I
Somebody
do
told
think
him.
he got someone told him for sure, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was like what you're saying. That would make sense to me. Light a fire under his butt. I think that's what the Light Years guys were speculating too. That like, did Steve Kerr or did Bob Myers say something to Stephen A?
Yeah, and it makes a whole lot of sense understanding how the current era of young players like again, let's say what it is. He is 19 years old. He has a lot of responsibility. He has a lot of money. He's going to be one of the 3 most important players for the Warriors. You know, once Steph, Clay, and Draymond kind of age up a little bit, he's like right there. He's going to be next, and he is only been in their system for this 1 year. Iguodala, Draymond, his vets, that whole thing. I'm sure that they're probably telling him similar things. So I don't want to blow this thing out of proportion because I think it is a little bit strategic like that. And I hope that he does sort of get it, right? Because let's see, is it when do they go to Japan? It's like in like 5 weeks or something, right?
I think it's at the end of September.
Yeah, so like 5 weeks, and they're already kicking up preseason games again. So training camp starts, all that stuff, and the season is just back. It feels like it barely ended, and that's just how the NBA season works, especially when your team goes to the finals or deep into the playoffs. So ultimately, I am not worried about a conversation like this. I was actually wondering, do you has he tweet? Because he's a tweeter, right? Like he's kind of a goofy retweet, make a funny face, a funny emoticon, whatever, jovial young guy. And so I was just wondering if he's done any of that.
Well, I haven't really seen any tweets from him since he like threw a little subtweet at Ja, I think during the playoffs. So I don't think I've really seen tweets. He's more of like an Instagram story guy. And I don't know if I started paying attention to his Instagram stories more when this report came out, but I do know that like in the past week or two, like I've been seeing a lot more in the gym photos from him.
There you go.
Like that Instagram story where I sent you where he like told Iguodala that he was ugly.
Yeah.
Like he was in the NBA PA, the Players Association. Okay. It looks like they have a facility, like a gym or something that he was just hooping in. So, he's definitely been in the gym a lot more. But I do want to kind of defend him a little bit, where I don't think I'm not defending this mentality, but I'm defending what he might be thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at his draft class, one of the high heralded draft classes in the past, I don't know, 5 years. You look at Cade, number 1 pick. He got the keys to his team. You look at Mobley. You look at Scotty. You look at Suggs, even though he's been injured. But like a lot of these guys, Jalen Green, Josh Giddey, they get extensive run, and they are almost the faces of their franchises. So I just feel like maybe Kuminga's in this mindset that he thinks he's good enough. He thinks he's the best, and he thinks he should be getting more and more opportunities than he's getting. I think that NBA players I think players have been knighted prior to them actually showing success in the NBA, but it was like very rare. You look at like LeBron, since I've been watching, you look at LeBron, you look at like Zion even, and I'm sure Shaq was knighted, and I'm sure a couple other guys were knighted before they got to the league. And now it just feels like a lot of guys are getting that status before they enter the league. I feel like Kuminga was in that group. I think like most of the players in that draft class were just told they were the best before they even made it to the league. So I don't know if it's this younger mindset of this next generation of players coming in where they all just expect to be the guy right when they get there. And I'm not defending that mindset, but maybe that is what he's thinking.
No, I think you're right. And I think because the league one of the really good things about the NBA, but also there is a detriment to it. It is a league in which it just gets younger every year. I forget, Jalen Rose used to have the number of how many players he would say players playing this season, X number of them will not be on an NBA roster next year because there are how many draft picks coming in, and those guys are going to find teams. And then there's going to be undrafted free agents who find teams. So he was basically saying how there's just a wash of 60 new players every season. So that means 60 players have to be out of the league to make room for these players. And so they get younger every year. You age out guys and you bring in 19-year-olds. So this is going to be the norm. I don't think we're going back to 2 years of college, like they used to, or back in the day, 4 years of college. But we're probably going to even get younger. They're probably going to allow high school players to enter the draft at some point. So it is paramount for these teams to be able to have a certain amount of vets so that they can mentor, or the coaching staff, right? Keeping a coaching staff that is savvy enough to understand young players, which is a really hard thing. And for someone like Jonathan, like, you have to sell him on the idea, like, yes, we know you want to play, but this team is great. Your buddies are playing on poor teams. That's why they are playing. You're going to get more experience. You're going to get better in this gym, in practice, playing against Draymond. They don't have that. So someone's got to sell him that, if that is the case, if he is hungry, like you were saying. But he also has to show in the work. He has to show Steve Kerr. He has to show Bob Myers. He has to show his vets that he is willing to put in the work that they are putting in to earn his playing time, because he's not have the caveat of being the first player picked in the NBA draft, where you get a little bit of cushion for being that. You mentioned Zion, right? We're still dealing with the cushion that Zion received because he keeps getting hurt and he can't keep his weight down, whatever it may be with him. I hope that he comes back, because I think he's awesome to watch. But yeah, he's going to have to realize that. And I hope, ultimately, I think the Warriors are a franchise that understands how to deal with this stuff. They are a veteran-laden franchise, but in order to win as many titles as they did, they had to sell some of these younger guys, like a Pat McCaw back in the day, Jordan Bell, who then probably got a big head and kind of played himself out of the system, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, I feel like we have two recent examples of buying in or not buying in with Kelly Oubre and Jordan Poole. Like, Kelly Oubre didn't buy in, and Jordan Poole, I feel like temporarily, like, I think he bought in, but it could be temporary, maybe. I still think he has like that mentality that he is really like that guy, can go onto a different team and drop 28 a game, I just think what's similar with all three of those players, Kuminga is more likely to follow the Jordan Poole route, because Kelly Oubre was kind of the player he was already when the Warriors got him, where Poole and Kuminga, you draft them young, you can mold them into the type of, player. But I think that all three of them are similar in the sense that I think all three of them would love to have their face on a magazine every day. I think they like being in the starlight and being seen by the crowd and being, that type of mentality. So I feel like it's similar in that regard.
Okay, we're going to come back to the Warriors here, but I want to talk about some of the NBA news. We kind of teased it up front. Chet Holmgren, he was number 2 pick in the NBA draft this year? Right behind Paolo. And he got hurt. Was it in the Pro-Am game?
It looked like it. I was watching that Pro-Am game, and I kind of turned my head in the beginning, and then I looked back, and I was like, where the hell's Chet Holmgren? Like, he was advertised for this. And it looks like I watched the play on what happened, and it looks like I didn't even see they're saying LeBron stepped on him. I didn't see it. It just looked like he was trying to stop a fast break of a freight train that LeBron is. I personally would have gotten out of the way.
What is LeBron doing playing in Pro-Am games, by the way?
I don't know. He's just getting his face shown. I actually don't really know what he's up to. Maybe he just is. He didn't make the playoffs. He's been not playing basketball for a while.
I know, but he's also going to end up having the most minutes played in an entire career. Like if I was him, I'd kind of savor those moments, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
All right, but okay, so how does this affect the I guess you've been following the young players. That's kind of your angle. You like watching the young guys. He was one of the guys on your radar. You were going to watch a lot of Chet, or as much as possible. Is this kind of a big blow? I think it's a big blow to the NBA. Now they will wait for Chet. Chet's still a very young man, and next year he'll be a little bit stronger. This is kind of like this is almost like a redshirt year for him. But I guess my worry is the feet thing. Like with big men, that's not great.
Yeah.
Having jacked up feet. I worry about that. I worry about his ability to, because one of the things that makes him so unique is his ability to play like a small man and a big man, and with feet injuries, maybe if he just gets a tick less of athleticism, that could hurt him. So that's kind of the things that I'm worried about. But what are you? I guess what is your frustration or your mentality around him missing this season?
Yeah, I think it's a blow to Chet, it's a blow to the NBA, and it's a blow to the Thunder organization that he's going to be missing this entire year. I was floating him for Rookie of the Year with like Keegan Murray and Paolo Banchero because
I put your money on that, man.
Put my money on what?
On those odds. You got to put your money out. You're throwing it out there. You're floating it out there. Just like Draymond says, you got to stand on it.
I'm not new media. But I think you had mentioned it, and I've seen multiple NBA analysts mention it, but like the narrative on his frame on how he can't like hang in there with the big guys and like the really strong guys, like that's just gonna take a leap for as long as he's out for. It's just gonna, until he gets back there and is able to prove that he's either that or not that. That's all we're gonna hear for a while.
I would treat it like a redshirt year, though, right? When players go to college and maybe they need a little bit of maturing body wise, they will get redshirted so that they could spend a whole year in the gym learning the system and everything. And maybe he does gain a little bit of size, but you never know, because does that hurt him or does that help him? If he's a little more muscular, if he has a little more weight on him, we don't know, because he is that unique.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not that it is kind of rare, but players, high regarded players, rookies missing their first season entirely, disregarding the specific injury. Like you look back and Joel Embiid missed his first year, Blake Griffin missed his first year. I'm kind of forgetting recently who's missed their first year. Did Ben Simmons miss his first year? I don't remember. But
I think he did.
I think
he missed
so too.
sometime for sure.
So I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, maybe he can bounce back. But I just think that teams like the Thunder and teams like Detroit and teams like Orlando are like one piece away from just like getting one piece and then just saying, okay, we're done with the rebuild. Let's just roll with what we got for a while. Mm-hmm. And I think this kind of like delays that for the Thunder, or pushes that timeline back maybe one more year. And I think they've already been in this rebuild for a while. They did the SGA trade for Paul George, and they had that good year with CP. But ever since then, it's kind of just been like, we're just going to tank as much as possible. And, they have all these picks lined up until forever. Like they have so many draft picks. Yeah. So technically, like they are fine. The Thunder organization is fine. But if you wanted to, like, I just felt like they were in that window where they just needed one more player next year, in the draft, top 10 pick. And they had their guys. And I think that Chet would have really benefited from having this year as like the last developmental year, not last, but like a developmental year before they went for it. Not necessarily a title that they will go for, but they go for like, okay, now let's try to compete to get into the play-in. And then, okay, we missed our shot. Like almost like the Warriors did, where they those years leading up, and then they went to the playoffs, lost to the Clippers, and then went to the playoffs, lost to the Spurs, and like that kind of grind. And I thought that the Thunder were 1 year away from at least trying it.
Yeah, I think I'm sure they have a plan. I'm sure Presti and team has a plan for what they're going to do, or what they can do for him. I wonder, what does that mean for their current crew? Does that mean it's like the SGA and does Giddey get a little bit more out of this now that they have one less guy who they're going to really put on the court? I wonder if he becomes a little bit more of the guy at the forefront of the offense. I wonder if he's enhanced. Like if you're on a fantasy team, does Giddey's stock go up now that Holmgren is?
I don't think
not
so.
playing?
I think Giddey, like his main trait to what he does well is playmaking, and that you just took away a good lob threat, a good guy to rack his assist numbers up. So I don't necessarily think he like gets better, but I think he's going into year 2, had a pretty good summer league. He looked like the best player on the court for a couple of those games that he shouldn't have been playing. And I think he'll just get better with year 2. I don't know. I like Giddey, but I feel like he's really bad at the two things that are almost the most important in today's game, which is a 3-ball and defense. And he's not that he's like pretty bad at both of them. So I'm wondering how he'll develop.
I mean, Luka developed, right? That was kind of Luka's.
Could he not shoot? Could Luka not shoot?
I mean, he's still not a great shooter. Like he's not a volume great shooter. He gets hot but he also takes really hard shots. But
yeah,
he was better, but that wasn't his main scoring positive about his game. By the way, you saying organization is like a Canadian way of saying organization, almost as bad as me saying J. Michael Green on one of the other shows.
Wait, how did I say it? Organization? Organization?
You keep saying organization. It's like a Canadian way of saying it.
Oh, sorry.
All right, another piece of news before we bounce back to the Warriors. Who made this? What's going on here?
Oh, man.
Pat Bev gets traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. What was it? Who was in this trade? I don't even know who was in the trade.
It was Taylor Horton-Tucker and Stanley Johnson.
To the Timberwolves.
No. Pat Bev was in that trade to get Gobert.
So
Pat Bev went to Utah.
To Utah. Okay,
and
that
the
makes
thought
sense.
was that Utah would buy him out and he'd be a free agent, but it looks like they got a trade done where they get THT and Stanley Johnson. I think Utah is just Danny Ainge, ever since he took over, has just been swindling these teams.
Well, okay, so you like THT as a player better than Beverley? For
no,
this
well, I just think that THT has a little bit of value. I kind of like Stanley Johnson. I'd be interested to see if like the Warriors can get Stanley Johnson.
Saw this dude in the G League last year, didn't we?
We did, and I think he's a good defensive player. And if it looked like he's been working on his 3-ball this year, this offseason, I'd be interested.
So okay, question about why the Lakers went for Pat Beverley. To me, the only reason if you're the Lakers organization, the only reason you go after Pat Bev is because you can throw somebody at Steph. That's like the whole thing to me. And maybe it's not just Steph. Maybe it is lead guards because Russ gets a lot of run. And maybe not. Maybe he's on his way out some way, somehow. I don't know how. They have so much. He costs so much money. But ultimately, you're playing the Warriors X number of times, including opening day. Pat Bev is an instigator. He gets on people's nerves. He was a nice piece for Minnesota. I think he really helped Minnesota, especially in that series against the Grizzlies. Just his confidence, maybe overly confident, but he helped those guys believe in themselves. And they, we talked about this last week. The Grizzlies were either the best or the second best team the Warriors played all playoffs. And Minnesota took them to 7 games in the first round, and some of that was Pat Bev. Pat Bev also has a lot of holes in his game. He can shoot a little bit too much. He can think that he gets a little too hot. But I think he's valuable for the Lakers if the Lakers are going to be a good team with Anthony Davis coming back and always with LeBron. I mean, you read off what their crunch time 5 was supposed to be, and it was really bad. You add Pat Bev to that crunch time 5, and it does look a little bit better, I think.
Well, he probably gets it's probably him, LeBron, AD, Austin Reeves, and JTA, I guess.
Yeah, and so, I like the move, but it is a bet on the Lakers being fully healthy, because if AD goes down, if LeBron gets hurt, if they are a 500 team, he's a trade piece. He's not a guy that you're gonna kind of stay. I don't know what his contract is like, but to bother Steph a few times a game, to frustrate Steph, to kind of be an annoyance to Steph, and they don't have anybody else to guard Steph. You know, the Alex Caruso would have been a guy you could throw at Steph, but he left. So I think that's the main reason.
Yeah. I like Pat Bev. I also wanted him a little bit for the Warriors. I remember we were talking about
They
that.
probably couldn't afford him though, right?
Probably not. And I think he has either one more year left on his deal. I should have looked this up beforehand, but I think I like Pat Bev. I just don't know. I just don't think a Pat Bev in any starting lineup is like really like a contending team. I don't know if he'll start. I guess I don't know if you could do Pat Bev and Russ starting together. I'm just so confused with this team, honestly. Like the team that I've heard that's been rumored for Russ now that the whole Brooklyn thing's done is Indiana, because I think Indiana has cap room, and I've been hearing Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. I just don't know why Indiana would do it. Like Russ would make the most money they've probably ever had under contract ever in Indiana's team. Russ still makes more than LeBron. He's at like 47 million or something like that. Like it's on an expiring deal, but I feel like the only reason you would ever think to do it is to, one, sell some tickets, and two, maybe have some kind of veteran presence for Tyrese Halliburton and Ben Mathurin. But
is it a good presence or a bad presence though?
I think it's a bad presence. I think it's a good presence maybe to have in the locker room, but a bad presence to have on the court.
You know where it's a good presence is the fashion before the game.
Oh yeah, everyone's
fashion
fits are going up. Yeah,
in Indiana.
Yeah,
and Russ becomes your de facto like clothing guy who you ask, should I wear this? He's like, nope.
Yeah, if Russ goes to Indiana, I think Lance Stevenson's still on that team. I think I need them both on the court at the same time.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you might be like, I just look at that. I think, by the way, Pat Bev, this is his last year with 13 million, which is why the Warriors wouldn't be able to afford him.
Okay.
Next year,
let's get him.
If he's on a minimum of some sort, then maybe they could get him. But he's also on the other side of it age-wise. He's 34 this year.
And that's the criticism with the Lakers, right? Last year it was like, why are they need to get younger? They're almost like this year's Giants. They just have so many old guys that just keep getting hurt, and with age comes, their body's like deteriorating. So, I mean, they had Melo last season. They had Dwight Howard. Then they have like Trevor Ariza and DeAndre Jordan at some point. Like they just had all these old guys that they were relying on. And it's like, okay, let's get younger. Let's get more athletic. Oh, hi, Juan Toscano Anderson. and then you get, I think they also got Lonnie Walker Jr. I don't know how big I am on that signing, but then you go back to old with Pat Bev. Although I do think Pat Bev's good. I just think that, what I said about the Warriors getting JaMychal Green, he kind of had a down year last year because he was expected to do too much. I think they relied on him too much due to Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray being out. I think that it could be a similar thing with Pat Bev. I think Pat Bev should be the 6th or 7th best player on your team, or 6 to 8 best player that you rely on, where I think it's just going to be higher on the Lakers. And I don't know how well that's going to go.
Yeah. I mean, on this current Warriors team, he would probably be like 9th or something, right? And
he'd be so good for us in that 9th spot.
Yeah. Especially as a ball handler, maybe side by side with Jordan Poole, or he could help offset Jordan Poole's defense, and he'd probably get a little bit of run in the playoffs too, just because he's got that bulldog mentality.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Andre Iguodala. We listened to Point Forward with him and your boy E.T. Evan Turner and his Muppet voice. I'm starting to like E.T. I'm starting to like E.T. a lot more than I did in the beginning. I think I just needed to get used to his voice. I think that's just what it was. Like, I just was not used to that high-pitched, nasally voice, but now I kind of like it. It's unique, and him and Andre seem to have a really good relationship, so it's kind of a fun listen. You're listening to like friends, talk about the NBA, which is cool.
I feel like that's a voice like if you met ET, like you'd remember that voice. And I bring that up because my buddy Alex Malone played against or with Evan Turner, because I think he was playing for Evan Turner's like AAU team.
Okay.
Sometimes players sponsor like AAU
Yeah.
team or something like that. And I think he played for Evan Turner's AAU team, or Evan Turner. I forget the whole situation, how it went down. But when he was younger in high school, they played, and Evan Turner joined them on their pickup run. And Alex never told me anything about the guy's voice. Like, I would have immediately said something about that. Like, this guy's voice is different.
Maybe on the mic, maybe the microphone just accentuates it or something.
Yeah, maybe he has like some accidental like pitch on the on the device.
By the way, Alex Malone on the PlayStation Network at Big Dangly Meat.
Oh God.
All right. So the main reason I wanted to bring up Andre is because a few weeks ago we were listening to this podcast, and me, you, and Ben Cruz were in our chat, and we're saying Andre keeps talking like he's still a part of the Warriors in the way that because they talk about the Warriors a lot. They have guests related to the Warriors a lot. And last week's show, there was a little bit of distance in the way that he talked about the Warriors. Now, I know he got called out on it. There was some Twitter stuff going on where he had to retweet something. But do you think that is Andre not wanting to show his cards? Do you think he's decided yet? Do you think he is trying to keep everyone sort of in suspense because he likes to, he's not going to be pressured into decisions? Yeah, he's what did I call him? He reminds me of the abstract, like Q-Tip. He's not your normal interview. He's not somebody who's going to say the same thing that other players say in the interview. Like, he's just a really smart guy. So do you think that is the case, or do you think that maybe he's moved on? Because there is something in there too, because he's like, this podcast and the things that he talks about in the podcast, like how does he do all of this and play in the NBA?
That's exactly what I was thinking. That is exactly what I was thinking. I feel like when you listen to that podcast, you could hear him get like excited about thinking about like that Christmas Day matchup with the Warriors in Memphis. But then you hear him talk about all this stuff that he's been getting into, the venture capitalist stuff, the Bitcoin stuff. He's so pumped about talking about that. So I feel like as a Warriors fan, like I'm spoiled and I want him to come back because I know how good he'd be, not only on the court, but not as much on the court. I don't know, but mainly off the court is where I think he would be so great. But like, also as someone who wants to see a guy that has helped the franchise you love, just like, I don't know, be himself and have success after basketball, like, I think he should not come back. I just think that he's so interested in that stuff. And I feel like when I get interested about something, like, I want to go all in too. So I think that he should do the venture capitalist, and like you said, like, how does he have time for this? Like, he's definitely just like on off days or in the off season or just like diving into this stuff, whether it's podcasts, whether it's reading books. Like, he's definitely super interested in this. But I feel like you could hear that, like, when he's doing his podcast, you could almost hear like the decision making in his head, or the contrast when he gets so excited about the upcoming season, but then he like dials it back, and then he gets so excited about the venture capitalist stuff. But yeah, I think he's still weighing it. I think he's still weighing it and not showing his cards. But it wouldn't surprise me tomorrow if we heard like he just announced that he's not coming back.
Yeah, I think he'd have to be very definitive that he's done, because I think the Andre Iguodala brand is definitely enhanced by him still being on an NBA team, and maybe even more so being on the Warriors next to Steph Curry and next to Draymond and next to Clay. That accentuates his brand, being a part of a championship team, being a part of a team that's going to be in the playoffs. Like, that's also kind of what he is selling. And so I think if he decides that he's not going to play, he's got to be pretty adamant that he's okay with being Andre Iguodala, ex-champion or ex-Warrior or ex-basketball player. And that would, I mean, maybe it won't be a hit. Maybe he's famous enough as a player that it doesn't hurt him. But I kind of wonder, now here's sort of like the plan C, which is, okay, Andre, stay in shape, and come January, we're gonna keep a roster space open for you, and just take all of the pounding that you would have put on your body, and we're gonna just leave it in the ether, and you're
Mhm.
not coming back until January, February for the stretch run when
Didn't
we
they do
need
that
him.
with Bogut recently?
Who do they do that with?
Because didn't Bogut come back in like the last KD year?
Yeah, but I think some of that stuff was injuries with him. Like it was uncertain whether he could still play, and then he had to
Mm.
work out. But I feel like this has happened before. Um, you kind of I sort of thought about it. Like, remember when Tom Brady got suspended for like 6 games, and like to some extent, as long as the Patriots were competitive, they were going to be fine because then he's coming back and he's not going to be taking that pounding that he may have taken previously. So I sort of see it that way. Like I would be totally fine if they play that with him. If like, look, you want to do this other stuff, just stay in shape, just be around the team, go do your stuff for 3 months, and then come Christmas time. Now it's basketball time. Now it's focus time. And you come back and you run with us and let's go chase another championship. I would love to see something like that. I think it's doable too.
Yeah. And I do think that, like you said, like, yeah, maybe his brand is more accelerated because he plays when he plays professional basketball and he plays with Steph and he plays on the Warriors, he's seen in the more national spotlight. But I think there's also a little bit where like these aging stars or just aging NBA players, they don't want to hang it up because like there were, I don't know how true the reports are, but Tom Brady retiring and then maybe he missed football like hanging out with his family over the summer
Yeah.
and he wanted to come back. Like I'm sure that's like with different players. I don't know if that's true with him, but I'm sure that's happened where these guys were like retire or contemplate retiring and then be like, I've done this my whole life. I don't know how to do anything else, and they just want to come back. And
Well,
especially
and I've told you I've had that conversation with his wife. That random time when Prakash and I were at the game and we ran into his wife. We didn't even go back to watch the rest of the game. I think it was against Timberwolves, by the way. Warriors were killing them, so we didn't go back. I think it was the last KD year. But we were just talking to her, and she was bringing that up. She was like, "Yeah, this is a thing that we are very aware that happens to ex NBA players, and we want to make sure that this doesn't happen, and we're." But they're just aware of it. Like when you retire, everything goes away, right? And you have to be mentally, you have to be ready for it. You have to have the sort of the plan to move on. Now, Andre's got the plan to move on. He's going to have so many things to do. It looks like he's got that part like that is stable, and that is the blueprint. It's just the whole, where else are you going to go into an arena and have 15 to 20,000 people react to something that you do? That's got to be like just like a drug. So,
and I think there's like a part of it where when you retire, I think some players can retire knowing that they could still do it, knowing that they could retire not necessarily on top, but still being able to get a contract wherever you want to get a contract. But I feel like some players also can't do that. Like if they still think they have it in them, then they'll regret not trying to play still. So I'm just wondering what category he's going to fall into.
And the other thing is, it sounds like he's invested very well, and that is not a worry. And with some players, that might be a worry, right? Where you do need to eke out that last deal because of whatever. All right, let's go to the last thing on our list of things to talk about. We're going back to this young man, Jonathan Kuminga. We've been doing this series of conversations about guys who are young and what we expect from them. We talked Wiseman, we talked Moody last year, and this is a little bit of last week. This is a little bit of a wild card because he can be so inconsistent. But I'll start with you. What do you expect from Jonathan Kuminga in this upcoming 22-23 season?
Oh God, I don't want to say it, but I guess he needs to be a role player. Like he just needs to. I guess he just needs to like almost like what we said about Wiseman. He's just gonna rim run and play defense, right? Like unless he's working on something else in the offseason, I feel like he's a player that I guess we haven't seen him have the opportunity to have the keys of the offense to a team, and I'd be interested to see what his game looks like if he were to get that, I don't think it would look that pretty. I still feel like he's really unpolished when it comes to offense and defense. Like he's really just a good kind of like what Clay did when Mark Jackson was just finally like, okay, just go guard the ball. I feel like that's kind of Jonathan Kuminga. It's like just go guard the ball. I don't think he's that good at off ball reads. He's more like an on ball defender. I just feel like a lot of his game's so unpolished still. I don't know where he's gonna get his buckets off of self-creation. We saw it in the summer league where he could just like if the shot's not on and he has to be the main focal point of an offense, it's gonna suck. He's just gonna force up shots and get mad at himself. So I'm just wondering like if he's working on anything in the offseason, whether it's incorporating some kind of mid-range, I don't know, trying out the 3-ball a little more. But I mean, if it's the same as last year, it really is like GP2 dunker spot, play defense. Like that's really it. But obviously you hope that he's working on something. And I think I didn't necessarily compare him to Kawhi once, but I feel like he's kind of mechanical. Like he doesn't look the most fluid, how some players have that, like, I don't know what the word is, but like fluidity and swag when it comes to like their hesitation moves and stuff like that. I feel like it's kind of like Kawhi where it almost looks a little robotic. So I don't know what the hell did Kawhi do to make it work. Like, did he have all that going into the jump? I can't totally remember, but I feel like Kuminga's got to work his way out. I don't think he should just be a 3-ball and dunker. I think he should work his way out a little more, like dunker, and now he's going to the mid range a little bit. So I just think he needs more levels to his scoring. And this is not necessarily projecting his. We're supposed to just say what we expect from him next season, but
do you sense that he's going to be the second guy off the bench, the third guy off the bench, the fourth guy off the bench? Because any further away than fourth guy off the bench, she's going to get some DNPs.
Yeah, I feel like he should earn that. Like I feel like he kind of did earn that last year a little bit with but then again he's a rookie. So I don't know. They got some vets who I feel like maybe should come off the bench before him. And you know how Looney's rotation works. Looney's probably going to be the first one subbed out. So I guess Wiseman is technically the 6th man. And then you have Poole ahead of him. And then you have JaMychal Green potentially ahead of him. I think JaMychal Green should maybe be ahead of him. And Dante DiVincenzo too. Like, and maybe even Moses Moody. I just think that specifically with the Warriors, which is unique, I think there's just going to be so many developmental opportunities where all the rookies will just get to have a game together. And I think that'll happen like 7 times again still. So I just think it's unique that that's available. So I don't think he'll be the second one off the bench. No. And if he does, it's what he's earned throughout this upcoming season. Like to start the season, no, I don't think he'll be the second one off the bench.
I mean, he's got a great example right in front of him of a young player who was kind of, and Jonathan Kuminga is not in the doghouse, but a player who was in the doghouse was Jordan Poole, and how he worked his way out of it is a great example for Kuminga, because Jordan Poole came out as a 19-year-old as well. And I think if Kuminga, we'll see what kind of competitiveness is in Kuminga, because I don't sense, outside of the developmental minutes that you're talking about, I don't sense that much is going to be different from last year. And Moses Moody might jump over him for those minutes. So that's going to be something that he's going to have to, you mentioned earn it, but I wonder how that's going to sit with him if that happens. And I would love to see what his competitiveness is as far as winning a spot or earning minutes or playing big time minutes late in games, because they need some athleticism. That was what they were lacking almost entirely last year, was athleticism. And Wiseman and him, and to a lesser extent Moody, bring that to the table. So that will be there. But also with Wiseman, Wiseman is going to push him back as well. Like I don't think people are kind of forgetting that Wiseman is going to have to play. And so putting Wiseman, whether he's your 6th man or your 7th man, that pushes everyone back. And we'll see how that works. So I want to see, I kind of expect the same amount of minutes in real games as last year. And I think it's going to be a fight between him, Wiseman, and Moody, and who is playing the best to earn real minutes late in games because the Warriors will need one of those three guys, especially we don't know what this version of Draymond is going to look like athletically. We'll see what happens with Clay the year removed from his injury. With Looney, Looney has had his injury problems too. So all of that stuff is sort of unaccounted for, and we don't know. But I do think that Wiseman right now is ahead of him, and I would imagine Moody gives them a little bit more than what Kuminga does to how they play, as we saw during the playoffs when who played in that series against Dallas. They did choose Moody, so it's going to be fun to see. I can't wait to see these young players battling for minutes and how they how they grow and mature. But there is something called the sophomore jinx, and that is also kind of what I thought about when we watched Stephen A's little clip from earlier. So that is,
I bet it's gonna be like, I'm wondering how he's gonna take it attitude wise. That like, when you work a year at a company, I feel like, I don't know if you expect a promotion or if you expect a raise, but like I feel like you expect a little something. And I don't know if you did good at your job that whole year. And Kuminga is essentially just getting, all right, do it over again. It's going to be the same old. You're probably in the same spot in the rotation, maybe same minutes. So I'm wondering how he's going to take that, especially being the 7th pick in a really high heralded draft.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so what do you have on tap for the BAM this week?
Football is recording right now, so I'll get that out tomorrow. Basketball, we're recording on Sunday. So yeah, we're just in a 3-man rotation with all 3 sports. I don't know if I can confirm. I got a guest for I believe next week, so I'll have to see if that's.
Who did you have on your basketball podcast recently?
We had a Twitter user named MBA_university. This person, I started following them, I think like around when the playoffs started, and he had like 2,000 followers maybe, and now he's at like 20K. Like he's just jumping crazily. And
what is he doing right, and that we can copy?
I talked to him, and he was saying, so he uses these advanced analytic platforms like Second Spectrum, where you hear like these like weird percentages where it's like, oh, what's Steph Curry's 3-point percentage when someone's 2 feet away from him, when someone's 5 feet away, like that. He like those kind of platforms that he uses, and he uses these graphs from one called B-Ball Index, which has all the players' faces, and you have your x-axis and your y-axis. And so I just feel like he's just been putting out that kind of information, and he's just been saying, what do you guys think? And then he'll give a little bit of his takes. But I don't know. I just feel like because if I think he's just like using these graphics from these different platforms and just posting out for people's interpretation. Like
it's pretty smart. That information is not easy to get.
No, not at all.
And you can use it for your own arguments, and I'm sure that stuff gets shared around a lot.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I think, let me think about this here. So Brad and I will be back on Tuesday, I think, of this week. We still got to talk that out. I have something to do on Monday, our normal recording slot. I believe the Red and Gold Standard are going to be back with their recap of the game that's going on right now. Very soon they'll be back with that. The Niners and Texans. I don't know, just kind of looking off to the side. Looks like the Niners are in 3rd and long, just constantly. And then me and my buddy Roderick, we're gonna bring the We Want Winners live stream to this feed. So if you're watching Facebook or YouTube, we're gonna do some live streams, post-game shows after 49er games. We may not be able to do every single one just because of life, but we're gonna try and do that. And I think this is gonna be like a seasonal thing. Like I don't think Rod and I are gonna do a 52-week thing like you and I do with this Warriors thing. I think it'll be more just during in season, because we already have a 49ers podcast. But for the live stream effect, like we're going to test all that stuff out, and that's going to be coming soon. We couldn't do it during the preseason because there's only 3 games during the preseason, so we wanted to test it out, but I just couldn't get all the graphic work and stuff done for it. But we'll definitely be after opening weekend for sure. So that's in a couple weeks. All right. So for Bry, I am Double G. We will see you next week. Peace out.